Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time!
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah!
I finished these fights.
Give me a hell yeah!
Top Rope Nation.
Learn to love it. It's the best thing going today.
What's up? What's up, Top Rope Nation? Coming at you a couple of days early this week. It's Tuesday night. Usually we're streaming on Thursdays or Fridays, maybe even on the weekend. Tuesday nights, it's been a while. But we had some reasons we wanted to go live on Tuesday. We had to overcome some challenges, though, to do this tonight. So I want to thank everybody who's tuning in live to Top Rope Nation here, streaming on YouTube. We're streaming on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, basically anywhere we could be streaming. But like I said, there were some challenges in doing this. And I'm joined by Kyle Ross and Justin Joint. And Kyle, I guess, number one, I just really want to thank you. I know it was a tough choice to do the streaming tonight on a Tuesday night because you had to miss NXT 2.0. So I really appreciate you being here live on Top Rope Nation, Kyle.
Yeah. NXT, I'll tell you what, last week I learned my lesson. First and last time I'm going to watch that show live. People can check that out if they're a patron. My rant about Broad Breaker.
That's right. Over on the Patreon page, we put out a bonus show each and every week. Top Rope Nation Extra. Last week, it was Kyle and myself basically doing an NXT-centric show, which we haven't done in a long time. A laundry list of complaints up at the state of NXT 2.0. Justin Joint, you may have heard that show. So we haven't heard from you in a few days. How are you doing tonight?
I am great. My kid tonight, for the first time, finally tried pizza and, of course, loved it like we told him he would. Antonio Conte is the new gaffer of the Tottenham Hotspur, so that's very exciting. And I'm in the midst of a move, which is a bit of a pain in the ass, but is much needed and very much looking forward to getting to our new pad.
Yes, and I'm hoping to help you set up a little podcasting corner or something, a little studio in your house. So stay tuned, everybody, because Justin Joint's going to have some new digs pretty soon. It's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, congrats on the new house, and I hope everyone out there listening or watching is having a great week. And we're going to do this show a little bit differently tonight. So to let you know what we're going to be doing, we're just kind of rapid fire a lot of topics that we wanted to get to, because in recent weeks we've been doing a lot of theme shows. You know, we've done reviews, of course, of pay-per-views, but then we also, we looked back at King of the Ring history, for example. I put out on the feed our Halloween Havoc look back last week that we recorded last year, but we haven't done a show really centralized on the goings-on of the current wrestling scene, just hitting all the big topics. So that's what we're going to do tonight. And then we're also going to go into the mailbag. It has been a really long time since we've done a mailbag segment here on Top Rope Nation. So as you're listening, if you want to get your questions read on the show, you can email us. It's topropenation@gmail.com. And if we read your question on the show, we'll send you a free Top Rope Nation sticker in the mail. So send those questions in so that the next time we do this, and I promise it won't be as long as it's been for this one, we get you your question. Hopefully, we got a ton of great questions tonight. I took them from email. I took them from our Facebook Top Rope Nation Pro Wrestling discussion group. So we're going to get a lot of people involved as we go. Of course, let us know your thoughts on whatever the topic is we're talking about tonight. Or even if you have a question, throw it out there in the chat. Like I said, we're streaming on YouTube. We're streaming on Twitch, Twitter.com, Facebook.com. So yeah, you can get a hold of us a multitude of ways. And if you're listening to the podcasting version of the show on, I guess I'll probably put this out tomorrow, so Wednesday morning, 2 days early, make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave us a 5 stars, leave us a written review. We read those written reviews on the show when they come in. And as we mentioned, Patreon, it is the absolute best way to support what we're doing here at Top Rope Nation. Bonus shows each and every week, plus a monthly bonus show, Top Rope Nation Classics, which is honestly, I think the guys would agree with me, maybe the favorite show that we do as a crew. It's once a month, but it's a big time deep dive looking back at a historical event in wrestling history. And we take those suggestions from our patrons. You're able to nominate a show, and then we have a vote amongst our patrons, and the winning show is the one we do on Top Rope Nation Classics. So we'll have a November show out very soon. October, we just looked back at a classic Coliseum video, which was Smack'em Whack'em, Kyle. That was a fun one, wasn't it?
It sure was. I don't think I can do another impression. A little under the weather tonight. Just want to let all the listeners know. So I don't think you know what? Maybe I can do a smack 'em, whack 'em.
Such a good show. Great time. So yeah, check it out. If you're a patron, if you're not a patron, click the link here in the podcast description and see what it's all about. Best way to support Top Rope Nation. So let's see. The chat room is active. We're going to get you guys involved here in a second. Let's just start off with the number one topic. I've got this as the thumbnail for tonight's show. Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch. Now, Kyle, you were pretty vocal about this on social media. I know you saw the match. I'm not sure if Justin did. I mean, if you've seen one of them, you've seen all of them recently, though. I mean, we've had Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch wrestling since they were on SmackDown. Now they're both over on the Raw brand. They opened up Monday Night Raw, and, you know, people were looking forward to the match, but once again, Bianca Belair comes up short. And so before we get to just the creative direction of what's been going on with Bianca and Becky, and I think we're probably going to say a lot of what we said when the heel turn originally happened, Kyle, what were your thoughts on that match just last night on Raw?
Bianca shouldn't have lost. I know that was a heel finish, but she shouldn't have lost. And where do you go from here? I mean, I think there's a larger issue beyond just the women's division on Raw of just a complete lack of compelling programs. Perhaps we could talk about that later. I don't know. But, you know, the match itself was okay, but what I wrote on Twitter was, in the case of last night's match, Bianca versus Becky, and then last week's match, which I ranted on from NXT 2.0, Tommaso Ciampa and Braun Breaker, the respective finishes of those matches prevent me from saying great match, because I think the results were both terrible in both instances.
Justin, did you see the match at all or read anything about it?
Just what you guys said. I'm not about to turn on that program until I hear consistent things week to week.
I really was not either. I was watching the Chicago Bulls, and I watched that game, and then I started Raw from the beginning, and I saw the match, you know, because it was the first match. And like Kyle said, they had a decent match, but yeah, the finish was that Bianca got Becky up for the KOD, but Becky like pulled off the turnbuckle pad, and then she ran Bianca into it, rolled her up, pinfall. And so like Bianca as the face is coming up short over and over again. The big thing that was noticeable though is, and we've been so vocal on this here on Top Rope Nations from the very start, what an idiotic decision it was to turn Becky Lynch heel. Nobody wants to boo her. When she won, the place popped big. Like she got more crowd reaction than Bianca did, even from the entrance. I mean, from the very start, it was clear to me watching that Becky had more cheers going on. She's supposed to be the heel. So like this, to me, this is an unwinnable situation for Bianca Belair. I mean, you kind of understand what they were going for. You know, Bianca, they want to make her the new face of the women's division. She had such a huge moment, you know, at WrestleMania and the Rumble and everything. And then you got Becky coming back. And so I guess they think, hey, make Becky a heel and then Bianca can overcome her and become the new, you know, the new top dog. But nobody wants to boo Becky Lynch, and it is so obvious, and there's just no way Bianca can come out of this better than she was before. Like, to me, she's lost so much stock since WrestleMania. I mean, that was the highlight of WrestleMania 37, easily to me, was Bianca Belair winning the title from Sasha Banks. And so I don't see how she can possibly emerge from this ahead of where she was before. Kyle?
So there's a lot of big picture issues at play, as there often are with these things if you're going to criticize. One, you know, they've done the feud all wrong from the start. The way it began with, and I know they were kind of in a pickle because Sasha couldn't wrestle at SummerSlam. I just would have not done a match at SummerSlam, believe it or not. I mean, yes, people in the moment would say, I can't believe we were denied, and the women are getting shafted again. People would have said that, but I think they would have moved on. pretty quickly. You talked about Bianca winning at WrestleMania, and that to a lot of people, and I probably won't disagree, was the highlight of WrestleMania this past year. But so you've got her as the strong champion. You did the right thing, and you want to bring Becky back. Well, what you want to create is people wanting to see that match down the road. Mm-hmm. And if you want Becky to be a heel, you bring her back as a baby face so people get that, that initial desire to cheer her out of their system. Because they're just that's what happens in WWE. It's been that way the whole 21st century. When people come back, they are at their most over. And they almost always get a baby face reaction. Because people are generally tired of seeing all the other same people over and over again. And they wanted to see something new because the TV is lousy. So they started it completely bass-ackwards with just bringing Becky back and doing a heel turn. Not only do people not want Becky to be a heel, I think Becky's a lousy heel.
So bad.
Liam said it on the Crown Jewel review, and he is correct, as he's correct about a lot of things. It is if she and Seth just watched Conor McGregor YouTube videos and are just doing bad impressions of that with the garish costumes and the over the top. I watched the one promo last night. It was just awful. Mm-hmm. And it was, I think, her decision to do this.
It was, yeah.
Pardon me. And somebody should have stepped in and said no.
She recently came out and said it wasn't her idea. In an interview. I read that somewhere that I think Vince wanted to turn her heel. That she was surprised that they weren't going to have her come back as a babyface.
Really?
I have not seen that, but okay. Yeah, I'd heard it was that she really wanted to do it. And, if that is the case, if she really wanted to do it, someone has to be the smarter voice in the room and say, that's great that you have this passion to do it. We're not doing it because you're one of the top two faces of the company right now. And these, that level of over with the crowd does not happen very often in this company anymore. In the last 10 years, there's a handful of people that have gotten to that level that she was at. And then when you're coming back from the long absence, like you said, Kyle, everybody wants to see it. You can't turn heel, at least not then. You got to roll with the babyface thing at least for a few months and then maybe do it. Not right off the bat.
And regardless of who even decided it, it was just wrong-headed to do from the start because you've created a situation where you made Becky look terrible. And by the way, there are multiple people within the company who thought what they did at SummerSlam was wrong. Multiple people within the company thought that was wrong. And so you did that. And you created a situation where you made her look weak. And it's one thing to do that and you delay the rematch, and Bianca gets the win back and then you build, but they've gone back to it now already multiple times, right?
Yeah.
They were in that three-way at Crown Jewel. I know Bianca didn't get pinned in that, right? It was Sasha got pinned. Mm-hmm. But she got pinned last night. What do you do? I mean, Becky and Liv Morgan is going to die a horrible death on Raw.
Oh,
and you've got these split rosters. You talk about loss of momentum. Here's the issue. And it stems back to the hideous brand split. There's just not, if you're going to do a detour with Bianca and she's not going to be working with Becky for the foreseeable future, she's going to, get her mojo back, whatever. What compelling stuff is she going to do with a split brand? There's not enough interesting people for her to work with when you divide the women's division in two.
Yeah. And what did everybody say when SummerSlam happened and Becky made Bianca look like a dope and beat her so fast? Everybody said, don't overreact. Let it play out. And I think we said at the time, we cannot give the company the benefit of the doubt that they're going to let it play out and that it's going to be any good because, as Derek said in our chat a minute ago, say it with me now, no long-term storytelling. The company doesn't know how to tell long-term stories anymore. Until they show me that they can do it, I'm never going to have faith that they're going to do right by these characters. And with Bianca Belair, like, why should you believe that she can come out of this, even the champion again after what's happened? I mean, of course she's going to get the title back, but like, if you believe that this is, you're a kid, you're watching this, you think it's legitimate or whatever, eventually she'll be a world champion again. But how could you even believe in her at this point? And especially if you're like kind of one of these people who really liked Becky, and then you'd warmed up to Bianca, and then you're like trying to decide who you want to cheer for. Like, why would you cheer for Bianca Belair right now? Clearly she's very secondary to Becky Lynch. There's a lot of issues with how they pushed Bianca Belair. Obviously, they did okay with her in the aftermath of WrestleMania, but they made errors right away. The day of WrestleMania and the day after WrestleMania, and for like a week after WrestleMania. This might seem minor to people, but it's not, because she could have made a lot of money. They had like no merch for Bianca Belair. And I know this because my little girls were getting really into Bianca Belair. We watched that match on Mania, and they wanted me to buy them a t-shirt. I go on WWE shop. The woman who just had arguably the greatest moment of WrestleMania this year had like 2 shirts, and they were ones that had been out for a long time, and they weren't good. They should have had like a whole page of merchandise for her, knowing how WrestleMania was going to go, right? They did. How much merchandise sales did she miss out on the week of WrestleMania? I mean, that cost her money in the pocketbook. So right there, they didn't do right by her. They didn't do right by her at SummerSlam, and they haven't done right by her everything that's happened since SummerSlam. So
I don't
unfortunate.
know. And again, with the, she's going to come secondary if they have Becky work Charlotte at Survivor Series. And I just don't know what you do with her. I mean, that's a big thing. I'm going to, on both brands, man. Oof. This television between Survivor Series and this day one pay-per-view. Hello.
It ain't good, is it, Kyle? It's not good. Not good.
It's not fucking good.
I did say that we're going to get into the mailbag segment later, and we're going to hit a ton of topics. But Kyle, you told me off air that you had a question that I guess was only sent to you that related to this topic.
Yeah, did read that? Justin, did you ever find, I just wanted, before we moved on, the Becky thing?
No, I'm still looking. I can't find it.
Oh, okay.
I'll let you know.
Okay. All right, but yes, so I don't know why this happens, Ryan, as we turn to the mailbag. Every once in a while when we do these things, or it seems almost every time we do a mailbag, somebody sends me a question. We always tell them to send it to the Facebook page, send it to the podcast email address, but sometimes I always get one. And it's always from the same guy. I just don't understand it. But our good friend Bruce in Connecticut sent us the following question. How come 1 week after new rosters went into effect, we seemingly have 0 fresh matchups? Good question, Bruce.
Bruce, do you say, I wonder if this Bruce says yes a lot. Maybe that's the issue. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
maybe he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't speak up. Maybe he doesn't have any fresh ideas himself.
Yeah, but let's just talk about Raw in general. Okay, obviously a gimmicked question that we're going to use to further pile on last night's telecast. What are the big matchups you're looking forward to from the Red brand between now and like Royal Rumble, or getting to wrestle? They've got Seth Rollins coming off a loss in a Hell in a Cell match. Edge disappears after he wins that match, and Rollins wins a ladder match to get the next world title shot at Big E. Kevin Owens, who has 1 foot out the door, has been persona non grata. He's trying his hardest to be a top of the card guy, but no one buys that he's sticking around. And then after that, what do you got? I mean, people were hailing this Raw show because it was just a simple wrestling show. Did it make you excited about the next couple weeks? I saw somebody, I'm not going to call him out, say, if it was 2003, I think Austin Theory would be seriously considered for Evolution. Yeah, if they wanted Evolution to suck. Like, I've heard people compare like Austin Theory to Randy Orton, but it would be laughable to say he's as good as Orton of like today, but he's not even as good as Randy Orton of 2003. Austin Theory, they got this guy taking selfies pre-match. They're bringing back the Tyler Breeze gimmick. Raw and SmackDown's not much better. They've got the Lesnar Reigns thing they're going to go back to, but what between now and then? They just did a draft, guys. There's no fresh matchups. There's not one. I'm sure there's something that hasn't been done, but there's nothing compelling. What are the title matches going to be on this day one pay-per-view? What is day one-ish in the WWE right now? Could somebody please explain that to me? Big E and Seth Rollins? Okay.
Kyle,
I know that.
What would
you'll
your
love that
reaction
being
be?
from Iowa.
Well, actually, I want to go down that road a little bit because I almost texted this to you last night, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to save it for the show.
Oh, no.
Justin and I, like Seth a lot as a wrestler. It was great to see his rise in 2015, and I thought he had a great run there. And to see an Iowan with the World Championship was super cool and something I always imagined I hoped that I would see one day as a wrestling fan.
Definitely 6 years ago.
Dude, I got to say, man, Seth Rollins is go-away heat for me right now. The character is freaking awful. Like when he comes out on TV and he does that stupid little laugh and
It's
the outfits and like it's freaking horrible. Like just the way Raw ended with him and the title shot. It's like I have no interest in seeing this. And it's unfortunate because I'm glad him and Becky are, they got a great baby girl. They're very happy together and stuff. But ever since they associated Becky with Seth on television, she went downhill. Remember? Remember when they started, like, we said it on the show at the time, like, keep Becky away from her on TV. Everyone knows it's a real life thing. We don't need to see it on TV. And it, like, took her down a level when they put her with Seth on TV. And ever since then, of course, she was still very popular, but the character wasn't as interesting. And Seth, man, he has just... Ever since, they turned it back face, and when they added Burn It Down, the crowd would get into the theme song, and that worked for a while, and he actually did build up pretty good little baby face run there, but then ever since they turned him again, he's been dreadful. Just awful. I have zero interest in this. And Kyle, what would you say if Seth Rollins beat Big E for the title so that they could do Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns at Survivor Series? What would your reaction be?
God help us all. You can't do that, man. You can't cut Big E off at the knees like that. I when you talk about the dearth of contenders, I mentioned it on the Crown Jewel recap. I'm pretty positive they're doing Big E and Goldberg at the Rumble. Because they don't have anyone else. Who the hell on Raw is going to get the Royal Rumble slot if it's not Seth Rollins? Who there is no way they can delay that match between now and the Rumble. They could do it 62 times. But
he probably will.
Yeah, I guess there's that route. God help us.
Record.
Who was on Raw? Fuck T-Bar? And that's something too. They have these secondary champions. There's no contenders for them. Who's Damian Priest going to work against? They need to get rid of this brand split yesterday. Anyone who still sticks up for the brand split in 2021 is an absolute maroon.
I agree.
I'm sorry.
We have a much stronger show without it. They don't need to do it anymore. It pisses off the networks.
Yes!
This dynamic with USA and Fox now. It's not good for anybody. Like, theoretically, if it was done well, could you create more stars? Yes. But the company, they really have never been able to do it well. It worked for a little bit early on, but overall, early on as in almost 20 years ago, but overall, no, it has not worked. And the shows would be so much more intriguing without the brand split. I'm completely over it.
Okay, let's look at last night's Raw results. We had the Becky Bianca thing open the show. Austin Theory beat Rey Mysterio by DQ. We had the Seth Rollins, Big E, Kevin Owens segment. Again, last week, I want to go back. This was like a just dreadful sign to me. The first Raw after Crown Jewel, and they're hyping the season premiere or whatever that bullshit is. They have 4 people come out, none of whom won on the previous pay-per-view, all stating their case why they should be the next contender. Like hand-waving results away. It was who? Rollins, Ray, Owens,
Finn.
And Finn. Yeah, Finn. Another guy who had lost a few days before. So you had 2 losers and 2 guys that weren't on the pay-per-view all saying, I'm up next. No guy off a big win. Let me keep going through this. Let's see here. Queen Zelina and Carmella beat Rhea Ripley and your girl Nikki Ash in a non-title match, because of course. Finn Balor beat Chad Gable. It was okay for a short sprint, but come on. Okay, your boy Shorty G ain't going anywhere. And Finn Balor, I don't know what you do. I mean, they probably should turn him heel because they just need people. And I mean, the Demon Mystique got killed at that last pay-per-view. The Dirty...
Why? Because he fell off the top rope? That kills a demon gimmick?
You want to see the demon again?
No, I was being sarcastic, but
yeah. Okay. I was like, okay.
I saw the sarcasm coming through.
Okay. I clicked back. I only heard the noise. I wasn't looking at the screen because I was reading these results. The Dirty Dogs beat the Street Profits. But you talk about a team that has lost momentum. How about the Street Profits? We're losing to the Dirty Dogs. Damian Priest beats T-Bar. Big E beats Kevin Owens. Lashley and Edge, I guess, are just whatever, but can you go back to Big E and Lashley? You've kind of killed off that program. Big E and Edge? I don't know if that makes sense.
What show is Bearcat on now? Is he on SmackDown?
Oh, goodness. Bearcat. Do you know what's sad is I don't know. Bearcat Keith Lee.
I thought he was on Raw.
I kind of think he was too. I feel like I see the...
if we don't even know what show he's on, then he's probably not really in the conversation for a
he performs on the Raw brand. You laugh. I mean, they may have to heat him up for a show. I mean, they got nothing. They got all this TV, and they got nothing, man.
It seems like KO might be going heel, full on heel.
Well, they're just going to chop him out till he leaves.
Yeah, because he doesn't have much time left. I think everybody expects him to leave, but
yeah.
I could see that happening. So,
quick question.
We'll see, but yeah.
This is a complete departure from our current topic, but also in the news this week, AEW may have it all, but it assuredly has in the works. Their first quarterly special could be called Battle of the Belts. Our friend Andrew Zarian broke that early January. Is that where you would debut Kevin Owens, assuming he jumps? Kevin Steen, as he would be called. Obviously.
I don't think his contract's up until the end of January, right?
Oh, it's not till the end of January. I thought it was the end of December.
Like 22nd or something like that.
Okay. Well, then there goes that idea.
Is 22nd the day of the show, the special?
I think it was like the 9th.
4th.
Okay.
I thought
it was early.
Kyle, I wanted to tell you that Gabe in the chat, patron of the show, he liked your Bruce in Connecticut reference. He said that was nice, Paulie. So...
Yes.
Like in the throwback from WWF Livewire. Yep.
Yes, for people who do not know the history of Bruce from Connecticut, when WWE did a Livewire show, Paul E. Paul Heyman once called into the show as Bruce from Connecticut to talk to Vince McMahon, and it was one of the better moments of live television of that era. And I think I've told this story in the pod before, but I'll retell it now. I was running the board for a UFC podcast once upon a time. This was like 15 years ago. And we had Dana White on the show. And there was like this second where there was no one queued up next to go. And the host did not want to be embarrassed and like have no one to go to on the lines. So my co-host of the wrestling show at the time was standing right next to me. I was like, dude, just, call and pretend to be somebody. And he's like, well, who should I be? I'm like, fuck it. Just say you're Bruce from Connecticut. And
nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So Bruce from Connecticut talked to Dana White.
Hey, let's go into this next topic. And this is kind of getting into what you just, we're talking about going into the new year. WWE announced their 2022 pay-per-view calendar. I'm going to put it up here on the screen.
Yeah, and, Justin, you are right. Expires in January 22. According to, this was at least as of 2 months ago, Kevin Owens' contract. Yeah, that's what they said.
So WWE is not doing a December pay-per-view. Of course, AEW won't have a December pay-per-view because they only run quarterly. After Full Gear here in a week and a half, they won't have one until February with Revolution. So WWE is running that January 1st pay-per-view day one rather than having a December pay-per-view in Atlanta. And then that will take us into the Royal Rumble at the end of the month, which will be at the Dome in St. Louis, the former home of the Rams. And after the Rumble, they will not have a show until WrestleMania. No February pay-per-view.
Well, there's February's TBA. It's I think they anticipate that being Saudi
Oh, is
Arabia,
it?
though.
I have the official release from WWE on the screen here, so they do not list TBA at all.
Well,
they just show January,
in our
April.
our show notes though, which you used.
Yeah, I couldn't share that one, unfortunately. That was from a different report, but yeah, February TBA, isn't that people are expecting? Is that the one that's expected to be Saudi Arabia, or is it May? No, May is Providence.
Yeah, February and October are expected to be Saudi Arabia, neither of which were listed on this WWE release.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're probably going to get the Saudi show, but not like a pay-per-view proper, really, between the Rumble and WrestleMania, which I think that's a good thing. Would you guys agree?
There's no need to do two pay-per-views between Rumble and WrestleMania. Like Fastlane, hit the
cram those in there. Yeah.
I mean, I know it's been in Cleveland a couple times. That stinks. Look, can I ask an honest question? February has typically been the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. You can't do the Elimination Chamber in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, no. Let's not go down this road. That would not be good.
I mean, you can't be like, live from Saudi Arabia.
Well, I mean, I remember you telling
Elimination Chamber.
You told on the show before that the Elimination Chamber has a different name in another country because of the...
Yes, in Germany, it does.
Yeah, because of the name, so I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, that would be bad optics, I think.
Yeah, so... Well, this pay-per-view calendar, so then looking at that, we know that Money in the Bank is actually going to be a stadium show in July in Las Vegas. So they're returning once again. SummerSlam was there last year. This coming summer to Vegas for Money in the Bank. We know there's going to be a June pay-per-view in Chicago. I mentioned before a May pay-per-view in Providence. And they're running SummerSlam at the stadium in Nashville where the Titans play. And then... they've got the September pay-per-view, which I believe is going to be in the UK, correct?
And and that's the big news. I think that's the same weekend as AEW traditionally runs All Out.
Yep. And then the only other show they have officially announced is Survivor Series in Boston in November. So we think there's going to be an October pay-per-view too, but they haven't announced it. But I guess
in Saudi,
Yeah. So... what I wanted to bring in here was a question we got, and I said, we're going to get to the mailbag segment officially, but this one tied in really well with the pay-per-view discussion here. Is our friend Gabe sent in a question. He said, change my mind. He doesn't like the 2-night WrestleMania format. And so he wants to know, like, what do we think? Are 2 nights better than 1 night? Can we change his mind that this is the way to go? Because Gabe prefers the 1-night WrestleMania. And it looks like this is the change they're going to make, for the foreseeable future. So, Justin Joint, your thoughts on this?
The problem is not that it's 2 nights. It's that it's so long. If WrestleMania was 2 nights, 3 hours each, nobody would have a problem with it. Anybody who goes to, I would say the majority of wrestling fans who go to WrestleMania, that WrestleMania weekend, are probably attending a bunch of wrestling shows. So who would be opposed to 2 solid 3-hour pay-per-view shows? The 2 nights isn't the problem. It's having 2 nights of 4 to 5 hours each.
It was like 3 hours this year, wasn't it? With the 2 nights? Weren't they about 3 hours? Maybe a little bit over?
I think it was a little closer. Yeah, I think it was closer.
Yeah. I agree with you. The runtime is the big problem. We've talked about on the show going to Mania and sitting in the Superdome for how many hours were we there, Justin? Kyle, 7 hours or something like that.
It was a long time.
Personally, I'm with Gabe. I like a 1-night WrestleMania and to have the show be tighter. Do like a 1-night, 4-hour WrestleMania max. Have it be 8 matches. Kind of like they did at 30 and 31, and that's that. I know that they had this theory basically ever since then that they want to get everybody on the show. I don't see it that way. I see it, WrestleMania is the number one show. Not everybody plays in the Super Bowl. Not everyone plays in the NBA Finals. Not everyone's going to be on the show. I'm sorry. It's WrestleMania. It's a special deal. Maybe next year you'll be on the show. I don't think you have to get I think that's a big problem, is that they play this out now where every single person has to get on the show. I think, Justin, you've said before here on the pod that this was the wasted opportunity with like the Andre Battle Royal.
Yep.
They want to get everyone on the show.
About to repeat myself.
Yep. If they want to get everyone on the show, make that be a special deal, and then that's a way to do it. But they, that didn't work out great.
Give that winner a title shot. Make it important.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So
or bring back Money in the Bank. The whole like I've got to get on. I know it's a separate pay-per-view now, and whatever, and it's never going back. But the whole concept of I've got to get on the WrestleMania card fit in really well with Money in the Bank, right? Because it was sort of 6 random spots. You qualify, and then you get the contract, and there's stakes involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess, as presently constructed and the way that they're booking the show for the foreseeable future, 2 nights is the best option rather than doing a 7-hour show. But I would prefer it was 1 night with 8 to 9 matches and a 4-hour show, but it doesn't seem like they're ever going to go back to that, even though it wasn't that many years ago that they were doing it. So if they're going to keep putting everyone on the show, I just runtime wise, it was the best option. It seemed to work pretty well last year. If you're going to WrestleMania weekend though, I don't know about going to both nights, like it's just a lot to go to the stadium and leave and go back to the stadium. It's a lot if you're traveling in. I know people are going to do it and stuff and buying 2 different tickets or trying to decide which event to go to. It's problematic. What do you think, Kyle?
Well, this will be the first year they're doing it where they're going to have a full house both nights, right? I mean, this past year it was limited capacity in Tampa. Look, the format they were using from WrestleManias 32 through 35 was untenable. The one long 6+ hour marathon show. Every single one of those years, or it was 32 through 35, pardon me. Mm-hmm. People were dead for those main events, man. And you don't want your crowd to be dead for the main events. I do completely agree with Justin that, okay, so you're like, well, 1 super long show is no good, so we'll just do 2 4-hour shows. That's still too much. That's actually more time. That's like 8 hours then. So it's like, yes, it's split up over 2 nights. So that's what I'm with you. In a perfect world, WrestleMania would not exceed 4 hours and it would be 1 night. And it would just be all big matches. The whole thing with we got to get everyone on the card, well, they've got all these people who don't matter, and then they bring back legends. They screw themselves over. It's not my fault that you have to bring back legends because 80% of your roster isn't over, and then you feel bad and want to give them a slot.
Doesn't that make the people who don't make the show that much hungrier, and maybe they would try harder to get on the show the following year if you didn't give everybody a spot?
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily, up to, but you're right that with the Andre concept, if you're not going to do Money in the Bank on the show, you're right. Andre was the way to do it, and you just have stakes, but it took them, 2 years to make that Andre thing just a total jobber battle royal that didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like the first year, they kind of made it seem important, but it wasn't. So, to answer Gabe's question, I don't know if 2 nights are better than 1. You know what's interesting? I could sit those first couple days of the NCAA tournament, or just on an NFL Sunday, for that matter. I could just sit on that couch right over there, okay, from 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff all the way through the 4 p.m. games and not get bored at all. Why can I not do that with wrestling?
Clearly, you're not watching the Chicago Bears, Kyle Ross.
No, I mean, well, to the point there's multiple. I mean,
then you might be getting bored.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, I
also I also don't watch just one game. I have multiple games on at once, so I guess that keeps me engaged. But I think it's odd. I was thinking about this when I saw the question earlier in the show, that it's weird that like there are things that I could regularly watch 6 hours of, but is it honestly the easy answer? Right? WWE is just not very good. To your point about the Bears, you can't watch the Bears for 3 hours. WWE is not very good.
You think you could watch 6 straight hours of an AEW show?
That would, I guess, be, or like, with like the Wrestle Kingdoms and whatnot, I start getting a little fidgety.
I couldn't. I mean, we've talked about AEW pay-per-views going too long too, where they try to cram too much into there. I mean, we've had that criticism of the show. I don't think I could, to be honest with you. I think it's just too long for a wrestling show.
I mean, you're right.
Personally.
If you wanted, 2 nights, 3, because there's just certain realities. If they did 2 tight 3-hour shows, that would certainly be preferable to 1 6-hour show, right?
Yes.
Based on everything we just said.
Yes.
Moments ago. Okay. So perfect world. It's 1 4-hour show would be best, but 2 3 hours is doable.
I was just going to go back to what we were talking about a minute ago with being able to watch like sports, for like 10 straight hours. It's because you're getting different matchups. Things are changing. Like me, I could watch 2-3 movies in a row, but it's just watching the same company in one shot. Like you could probably do, a 2.5 WWE show and then like a 2.5 hour AEW show. It's just, you need something that's a little bit different than, the same production and same stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there hasn't really been a great WrestleMania since the marathon format, whether it's been 2 days or just one long day, right? I mean, the last great WrestleMania, I think most people would say would be 31, which was one night, sub 4 hours.
Yep. Agreed. Let's see.
Hey, we talked a lot about this stuff too, the pay-per-view calendar on the Facebook page. People could check that out. Does Elimination Chamber make it to 2022? What are those May and June pay-per-views going to be? I think the Extreme Rules concept should be thrown to the wolves.
Mm-hmm.
They may go with WrestleMania Backlash again because they can use the WrestleMania name. That would have to be the May show. But would they do Elimination Chamber and Money in the Bank back to back?
That's not good.
No, it isn't.
They should.
Like it's 2 multi-person match pay-per-views in a row. So yeah, I'm looking at the Chicago one in June. I don't know what that's going to be.
I think they need to bring back pay-per-views themed around flaming testicles.
Yes.
I mean, that's
great balls of fire. Yeah. Bring it back, baby. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's I do like that they kind of condensed it here at the beginning of the year. I do think that that's positive. We'll have to see how the rest of the year plays out, though.
Yeah, is the death of themed pay-per-views is a good thing. That is something I would give them credit for. And I guess it kind of leads me to something I wanted to talk about, too, with this calendar. It's true for next year. It's true for this year. There's no pay-per-views in December at all now, which is good. I mean, I think the whole one pay-per-view every month thing was dying a horrible death and was just not needed anymore. Mm-hmm. So no pay-per-views in December. Anything special you're planning on then watching that month? You'll have a little extra time, or no AEW pay-per-view, no WWE pay-per-view. And when was the last time we had a month without a wrestling pay-per-view?
Oh, man. I'm sure you looked it up. I'm not sure.
So I kind of started thinking about it, and I went back to the In Your House. I was like, all right, In Your House was May of 95. But so I was like, okay, April 95. But WrestleMania was, I think, April of that year in 95. And then you had like WCW pay-per-views. I was going back. I thought it was, I had gotten all the way back. You could see, I was getting so excited thinking about it to myself. I'm sure you guys can imagine. I had gotten all the way back to March of 93 was the last time I had thought there was no WCW or WWF pay-per-view.
Wow.
But then, remember, WrestleMania goes back and forth. Sometimes it's in March, sometimes it's in April.
Mm-hmm.
So there have probably been some Marches from WWF where there was no pay-per-view in like the 2000s. But was there a TNA pay-per-view in those Marches?
Well, that's trying to remember where it was.
That's kind of the thing about saying there's not going to be a December pay-per-view when you got Final Battle sitting there.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess traditional pay-per-view. Yeah, I guess the network isn't either. Yes.
Yeah, what
well,
was
who
the
knows?
March pay-per-view? I can't remember.
Maybe it is. Well, in recent years they did it. Like I said, they had Elimination Chamber, they had Fastlane and stuff, but there were I don't think there was a pay-per-view, I bet, I'm trying to think WrestleMania's in the aughts.
Mm-hmm.
Which one do I know was in April? The 2005s, 2006s, 2007s of the world? I bet you
2006 was, I'm pretty sure.
Was in March or April?
April.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there probably wasn't one in March because they were still doing brand only back then.
Yeah.
So they would have been on February. And because it's an early April and Backlash would usually then be at the end of April. So, yeah. So if there's no TNA pay-per-views in March of those years, then that would be the answer. I'm trying to think. Let me look it up here. TNA pay-per-view history.
God. Not something you Google every day.
Oh. Okay. So they had one in March of oh my God. Oh my God. I forgot TNA was running pay-per-views every month.
Yeah.
I forgot they were running pay-per-views every month, guys.
Blocked it out.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe it's March. Excluding Final Battle, no disrespect. Maybe you have to go all the way back to March of '93.
I can't say for December there's anything special I'm planning on watching. Whatever Top Rope Nation classics that we're preparing for in December.
Good answer.
But outside of that, I'll probably watch as much old school wrestling. I'll be going on the holiday break from work and stuff, so have a little extra time. Probably just dip it in the archives. To be honest with you, watch old wrestling, which is what I most enjoy watching these days outside of AEW. So, What about you, Kyle?
I started watching that 1984 MSG stuff. I've been a little under the weather, as people could hear. So I finally watched the February and March shows. I'm a big fan of Roddy Piper and Dr. D. David Schultz. That's a team, man. They have a match against the Invaders in February. Wardlow and MJF need to rip that match off and modernize it and do it on Dynamite.
Oh, man. So, funny you should mention David Schultz, because friend of the pod, Ryan Huffman, just met David Schultz at an autograph signing, last weekend, I think. Yeah,
wow.
Sent me a picture with him. Down near St. Louis.
Hope he didn't get slapped.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'll have to ask him. Let's, should we get to this mailbag segment?
Let's do it, man.
Real quick, before we get, I found that Becky, where she said
the quote from earlier? Okay.
Yeah, it was an interview with your boy Ryan Satin. She says, you're always thinking of, what would be cool, what would be interesting, what would get under people's skin. I was always thinking of what it would be like. She's talking about when she came back. What would my comeback be like? What would I do when I came back? Vince is never going to want me as a heel. So what does this new baby face look like? And then they told me I was going to be a heel. And she said it was very last minute, and that it was basically because they wanted to put her up against Belair, and they didn't want to do babyface versus babyface.
To me, that doesn't sound like she didn't pitch it. Because the way I don't know, I feel like she's being careful with her words, because it kind of sounds like she was pitching it, but then she didn't think they would go with it, and then they told her she was going to be a heel. What were you thinking?
I just don't believe anything on Ryan Satin's Out of Character podcast. A hideous show. Sorry.
All right, mailbag segment. I said this earlier. We'll do these a little more regular. We used to do them every few weeks. It's been a while, but if you have a mailbag question, of course, again, one more time, send it to us. You can email the questions to topropenation@gmail.com. If we read it on the air, I'll send you a free sticker in the mail. Here's the first one. This comes from good friend of the pod, Aaron Graham. He says, what is the best wrestler for a Halloween costume? And I know where he got this idea, because I had just posted a picture from my own Halloween outing where I dressed up as Penta, which you're going to see on the stream. There I am the other night. Halloween. Although, I'll tell you what, man. Look at I've been lifting. You can tell. I am not the only one on this podcast who has dressed up as a wrestler for Halloween.
Oh,
There he is.
there we
The
go.
legend. That's Brian with you as Piper, isn't it? Kyle's the Macho Man.
We had a big group that year. Everybody went as a wrestler.
Justin, I don't know if you've ever dressed up as a wrestler. I knew that picture of Kyle was on Facebook. Hawk?
As a kid, it was really cold one Halloween, and I happened to have like a red and black kind of stripish jacket. So I threw out that on and had my mom paint on Hawk's face paint.
That's awesome. Wrestlers are just like the perfect thing to do for Halloween. Actually, as we got in the car, take my kids to the relative's house trick-or-treating, wearing that full Penta get up, and I looked at my wife and I said, imagine not loving professional wrestling. It is the perfect. I mean, I try to do it every year, a wrestler. I've done Macho Man numerous times. Macho is a great one to do. I got to start planning next year's.
Macho was the first name that popped in my head when I saw that question.
Yeah. I mean, I remember a lot of people doing Sting, like the Crow Sting at one point in time. I've seen people doing DiBiase before. Hulk, a lot of people do Hulk.
I think Demon Finn is pretty popular.
Yeah. Yep. That's a cool one if you can pull it off. So, yeah. I'm going to look for you, Justin, next year. I'll paint it up out there in your briefs. That's what I want to see. But no, I think I love being wrestlers for Halloween. I think it's great. So, and those are some of the best ones, I think, and what we have done in the past. Let's see. Okay, this was a really good one sent in. Patron of the show. This is Niall Clark. Let me just read the actual email. I got the summary up on the screen right now. But he said, how would you rank the following eras in WWE from worst to best?
Oof.
Okay. So this gets into, you got the golden era, which would be like the 80s into the early 90s. You got the new generation era, mid 90s. You got the attitude era, late 90s into early 2000s. Ruthless aggression. You got the PG era, and you've got current. So if you're going to rank those eras, how would you rank them worst to best or best to worst? And then I think on the Facebook page, we got into this discussion of, where does the attitude era start?
Or I think for all these eras, you could make an argument when they start. I mean, the golden era clearly begins with Hulk Hogan winning the title.
Yes.
The beginning of 1984. But when does it end? Does it end when he stops being full-time in 92?
I think it's when Brett starts taking over. Maybe around the steroid stuff.
Yeah.
So like 84 to 92, you're saying, because like 90 and the thing with that era is 90 and 91 would hold that down a little bit for me as albatrosses. Like 84 to 89 is probably my favorite run of the company. But if you're including 90, 91, and 92, then all of a sudden it kind of tapers off a little bit.
Yeah, I think, that's about right. I'd say personally, new generation era is like 93 to 97. But
the thing is, when I was up this, I think they didn't start saying new generation until like 94. 93 and really 92 are oddball years.
But if you have to lump them in,
I think it was when Brett won the title, right? At Mania 10, Vince McMahon said, he kicks off a new generation.
I think, frankly, you got to just go with when Hogan exited the company, though. Like when Hogan still has a title run in 93, as brief as it was. I think you're right. 94, I think, is when they ran the commercials, New Generation.
Yeah, well, and why were they doing that? Because they knew Hogan was going to the other channel.
Yeah. To me, the Attitude Era starts in 97. People will like kind of disagree on when. Personally, I would just kind of start from Mania 13. And when Raw, became around that time, and I think March became 2 hours, they went to Raw's War. To me, that's kind of like the start of the Attitude Era. And it's like spring of 97. Would you guys agree?
Did it end? Yeah, I would.
I'd say 02. A Ruthless Aggression's like 02.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking too.
The interesting thing again is there's 01 is such a oddball year because it's the invasion and the peak is very much over. Like Austin's heel turn just, was a killer. But you're right, like 02 when they went to the split brands and Vince McMahon said Ruthless Aggression. is kind of the start. But so like 01 is very much like feels kind of just a year into itself.
Mm-hmm.
Post Mania.
For me, it's so closely tied to kind of who the new stars are. Like obviously you said 84 with Hogan. For why I think me and Ryan were kind of pointing to maybe 92 for New Generation is because that is kind of the rise of Bret Hart with Shawn Michaels right behind him. And then, with the Attitude Era, you have Austin and The Rock. And when you get to that kind of 2002, 2003, then you're looking at Brock Lesnar is in there, followed by John Cena and Batista.
Yeah,
Ruthless aggression.
For sure 2002 is different than like 2000. It's just kind of like, I guess, when you end it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then
it's almost like the invasion. It's almost like you should forget the invasion era or the invasion happened, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When's the PG era begin?
Post Benoit? 2008. Well, 2008 they stopped bleeding because that's another tricky one because they were still bleeding in 2008, Michaels and Jericho. And when does it end? Like, because I think 2008 through 2010 and then 2011 through 13 are very different companies. There was like a mass exodus of people in 2010. Batista, Michaels, Edge got hurt. He came back for a little bit in 11. Taker and Triple H stopped being full-time. So I
think most people see the height of Cena as the PG era, right? Like he was around in the Ruthless Aggression, but that was like more the rise of Cena. Like the height of Cena's reign and run as world champions kind of like that exemplifies the PG era for a lot of people. But then like this is where it gets really murky because the product even today just doesn't feel much different than Yeah,
I mean, when did the current era begin? Was it the WWE Network in 2014?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, the network, I think.
It's just
or you could even say whenever the hell they went to 3 hours with Raw, 'cause that's when it started getting monotonous.
That was 12, I think. 12.
Yeah.
Sorry, well, we should answer the question, I suppose.
So how would you rank these? Like, what's your favorite? Then kind of go down the line. Kyle, you've probably thought about this like 100 times.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there's a pretty big dividing line between two of them and everything else. And I don't mean to be boring, but the Golden Era and the Attitude Era are just simply much better than all the other eras. And I'll actually turn some heads and say New Generation might be number 3 for me. Was it successful financially? Nope. But when I go back and watch that era, I respect how they tried new things, even if they failed. And I'm, as you guys know, doing this Survivor Series write-ups on the Facebook thing, right? And I'm starting to work on, I've already gotten the first 10, I wrote the first 10 up a long time ago, and we're posting those now. And I'm starting in the 2000s. Dude, these write-ups take a noticeably negative turn in the 2000s and never stop being negative. Like, I'm just going to just not lie. Like, over the last 20 years, there are very few Survivor Series that I am giving glowing recommendations to. Like, 2, 3 tops in the last 20 years. So, I feel the PG era was like my nadir of watching the product. So I want, like, 2008 to 2010, I was kind of tuned out. That's the only time when I just was not watching regularly. And I don't have a real strong desire to go back and watch it. So maybe, but the last couple of years have been terrible too.
Adam asked in the chat, when did WWE go public and if that would factor in? That's a great question. WWE went public in the fall of '99, so right at the height of the Attitude Era. Yeah.
But the fall off didn't happen. I mean, they actually got quite good right after that again, after kind of a sorry '99. So
So you're saying, I would actually agree. My top 3 are definitely the classic period, the Golden Era, Attitude Era, and New Generation. I'd go back and forth between Attitude Era and the Golden Era as my number 1.
There were things that I liked more about one than the other.
Yeah, those are like 1A and 1B for me, for sure. And then I would also go New Generation Era. You know, people always say, and this is probably true across the board, people like the wrestling they grew up with the best. You're always biased towards the wrestling that you grew up with. So, like, if I was 25 years old watching the New Generation era, probably wouldn't, but like a lot of my favorite wrestlers growing up, like that was the prime of their career. Bret Hart, of course, Shawn Michaels. So to me, those three, and then I would agree with Kyle, PG eras is a pretty huge fall off for me. Ruthless Aggression had its moments. That's going to be fourth. That would be fourth for me, definitely. And then PG and current is just like, I guess I'd take like the heyday of Cena over right now. So current era would be last.
I'm thinking when was the last time you ever sat back and were like, you know what I want to do is watch the WWF of 4 years ago?
Yeah.
Like whoever says that? Like I would never say that. And 4 years ago, 2017.
Yeah. I would go Attitude Era, Golden Era, New Generation Era, Ruthless Aggression, PG, Current, based on those eras that he listed in that order from top to bottom. What about you, Justin?
Pretty similar. Attitude, Golden. Man, in New Generation is tough because I was not watching during a lot of it, but there's a lot of good stuff, especially when it comes to Bret Hart, that I like to go back and take a look at. Mm-hmm. I like a lot of the matches from the Ruthless Aggression area, and this could get me in some trouble, but I really love that 2012 to 2015 time frame. I just don't know where that fits into any kind of era. That little time frame actually could be third or fourth for me.
What puts the Attitude Era over the top for me with the Golden Era is that I'm factoring in 97, which I've said many times on the pod. It's my favorite year of wrestling. So like, and that's WWF. I loved 1997 WWF. So if that's part of the Attitude Era and not New Generation, then yeah, Attitude Era is number one for me, followed closely by Golden Era. Yeah, you make some good points though, Justin. I agree with some of that. It's tough. It's really tough to rank these periods.
It is. I mean, it's also tough just defining them. This was a very tough question. I mean, this honestly, we could make a whole show about that, but we've got more questions.
Yeah,
but I mean, not to be boring. I just think it's really weird. Maybe if you're just younger, you wouldn't. But if you're our age, you're gonna say it's either the Golden Era or the Attitude Era.
Yeah. All right. Here's one. This is from another patron of the show, Tim Jensen. Gets shout outs occasionally. What wrestling things do you collect? And he joked Kyle must collect Triple H memorabilia in the group. I don't know. Do you guys really collect anything outside of like tapes and video footage and stuff?
No.
I mean, I know Kyle, you have a big tape collection and stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I always was just dubbing tapes, getting stuff off eBay, whatnot, trading. But yeah, no, I've got a few like 5 action figures over there. Like across the room, but that's pretty much it. That Survivor Series poster.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I get a lot of wrestling shirts, but I can't really call that a collection because it's almost one in, one out with that stuff.
Yeah, I'm definitely the most the collector of the pod for sure. If you can't tell, behind me here, but yeah, I collect old wrestling figures, mostly Hasbro's, a little bit WCW Galoobs. And I've got like some Jacks from when I was a teenager that I picked up here and there, early teenager. But for me, it's old wrestling figures. I got some Remcos that Aaron Graham, friend of the pod, sent me, and that's kind of something I might go down. I got a few LJNs as well, and I'm not like a collector, but I've got a few title belts that I like and that are in the case behind me. I wouldn't say I collect them because I don't have a lot of them, but I wanted like the belts from the period I grew up liking the most, like we just talked about. So, I got the Winged Eagle and the classic IC belt back there and stuff. But they're almost like art pieces. I don't wear them to shows or anything like that, but I like having them on display. So I guess those, but definitely I collect the figures, the old school figures, for sure. There's quite a private chat going on here in the studio. I'm like seeing the thing flashing at the bottom of the screen. My God. All right. So we're going to hit the Survivor Series question. We might have to say we're going pretty long. We might have to save some of the rest of these for.
Those other ones I think could be pretty quick. Let's do it. Come on.
The Survivor Series question for Michael Jenkinson.
Yeah.
All right, let me read this. So he says, how would you fix, and also Michael's a patron of the show, how would you fix Survivor Series? I like the traditional elimination match structure. Is there a way to keep that match style relevant while making the pay-per-view feel important? He says Raw versus SmackDown concept is dumb. We can all agree. And also, I want to mention Michael is going to be on the pod in January. We're planning this. He's coming on for a very special Royal Rumble show that he and I have been planning. So you can look forward to hearing Michael on Top Rope Nation here in a couple of months. But what do we think about this Survivor Series question?
My God. Look forward to hanging out with you and podcasting with you, Michael. I'm actually going to surprise you. I don't think Raw versus SmackDown is inherently a bad concept. I think the way it's done is atrocious. Go back and look, 2016. I'll make the argument the main event of that show, or actually wasn't the main event was Goldberg and Lesnar, but the Raw versus SmackDown match on Survivor Series 2016, I think is the best elimination match in history of the Survivor Series. I think 2005, it worked and actually led to a bit of an increase over previous years when they did Raw. That was the first time they did Raw versus SmackDown. It was the only time of the first brand split era. The problem is now everyone's been around for so long, been on both brands, and they do it in the shadow of a draft where no one is clearly defined as a Raw or Smack. You've got people on Team Raw or Team SmackDown that were just drafted a month ago to the show. That is absolutely fucking heinous. You can't do that. So, I mean, Raw versus SmackDown is an idea that can work, but just not as it's presently construed. To make elimination matches work, and Michael, please check out the Facebook page, because we'll be talking about this a lot with the Survivor Series history. It's pretty clear that early on, they didn't really know how to make them big time. Like the first one worked with Hogan and Andre as captains. It requires long-term booking. You have to set something up. Like the easiest way is stakes. And the few that have worked have had stakes. The Authority in 2014, Steve Austin as general manager in 2003 was good. The Alliance WWE in 2001. Okay, it wasn't what it should have been, but at least that had stakes. That's one way just to have them at. But I've always thought, and I'll be going through them again on the Facebook page, that it's a way to, if you've got a top level feud, but you don't want to like blow it off yet by having those guys do a one-on-one match, you have them captains and it leads to something, right? Like in the case of that first Survivor Series, it was the catalyst to get to the rematch in February from Hogan and Andre. 88, it was Hogan's first attempt at revenge at the Big Boss Man after a major angle. That was the first time they were in the ring together. They just haven't had like a big like thing since then.
Well,
go ahead.
It's a gimmicked match that is shoehorned into the schedule. If you don't have long-term booking and you don't have plans that are interesting going into it, then you're just throwing something together. And like you've already said, if there's no stakes, what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, they tried Grand Finale once. That didn't work. I think and maybe Justin, it was you a few weeks ago who said this, but if you use Survivor Series and had a Grand Finale match and it was instead of just the baby faces and the heels, it was like a battle royal or something, and the winner got a title shot, that would be an idea. It didn't draw, but 93, and we'll get to this again on Facebook, cheap plug for the third time. Like, if you look at the 93 show, that was actually an instance of they knew where they were heading, and the moving pieces kind of worked. So they had Lex Luger and his terrible feud with Ludwig Borga. Okay, we agree that stinks. But it was a way for Lex to also captain against Yokozuna when he couldn't challenge him for the title. He wins his other kind of secondary feud. And in that match, remember, they set up the Royal Rumble title match between Yoko and Taker, who are not feuding at all. So, like, there's things like that you could do where it's, you have two people who may not be feuding, they start a feud within the confines of that match, and that leads somewhere. There's lots of things you can do, but they just always have chosen the laziest way possible.
It's where the Brett and Owen feud kicked off, too.
Yes. Yep. I mean, there have been angles that they've done, but they just, it's real lazy. They just think about protecting people, and we don't want this guy to get pinned or look weak.
So basically the answer is without long-term booking, you can't do it. Can't make it.
You got to have if you got to have a plan. You got to have a plan, otherwise it's not going to work. Especially when it comes to these gimmicked pay-per-views.
And that's why they do it the way they do now, because it doesn't require them to have long-term planning. They can just pick any 5 schlubs from Raw against any 5 schlubs from SmackDown.
All right. Friend of the pod, Greg. Next topic here. All right. So he had asked if you could flip anybody from the brands. I think he was maybe referring to the companies here. And by the way, also, Greg is also a patron of the show. So guys, if you're not a patron of the show, what are you doing? Because all of these people are patrons of the show. Greg says, if there was one worker from each brand that you could flip to the other and they would flourish in the other company, who would they be? So I think what we're looking for is WWE to AEW and and so on, and maybe New Japan if you want to throw it into. One guy from each company that you could flip to the other where you think that they would really flourish. Who would it be?
I thought about this.
Yeah.
And man, is there not a lot of people I want to see go to WWE. I mean, who are some of the obvious answers for that? MJF.
I think you gotta, and for as much as we, bashed what's going on in the WWE women's division. I mean, some people from the women side, maybe just so you could see like a Britt Baker work against a Sasha Banks, work against a Becky Lynch. Like that would be intriguing. I
have zero confidence they would put her at the top of the division.
I think it's guys that have already been there. CM Punk.
Yeah.
But who wants to see them go back?
Nobody.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to answer the question.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking guys like, okay, MJF, but I think they would take the edge off of him. People might say Brian Cage because his body, but you talk about Bearcat Keith Lee earlier. Okay, a different presentation, a different physique, but Keith Lee, what he brought to the table was a big man with a unique moveset. They don't want big men to do unique moves. And Brian Cage, his whole appeal is he's a big muscle guy that does the moves you see on the indie scene. They would strip that away from him. I mean, pardon me. I got down to like Powerhouse Hobbs.
Lance Archer?
Yeah, but I don't think Lance Archer would do much. But don't you think like someone
like a Britt Baker would have a better run? I think.
In WWE?
I'm not saying better than AEW for sure, but like she could flourish. Like she could have some really good feuds. I mean, you honestly wouldn't want to see Britt Baker work Sasha, Becky, Charlotte, Bianca?
No, because I don't want to see her lose to all 4 of them. She would not be.
I don't know if I can agree, man. Like
she would not be a top 5. She would not be a top 5 woman in the WWE, and that's not because of her lack of talent. It's because of incompetent booking.
I think the intrigue, though, from an intrigue perspective, to see her work that level of talent. I mean, no matter how the company is booked, there's a lot of super talented women's wrestlers in WWE.
And she would lose to all of them. And then they would have her do they would have her do Isaac Yankem vignettes.
But dude, for the sake of the question, I think that Baker could have a pretty damn interesting run in WWE. Do I want to see her go there? No, I don't. I'm just saying for the sake of the question that it would be intriguing to see her work some of that talent. More, I would rather see, if you're looking at prospective matches that you could do, and you could do Britt Baker versus all those people I just mentioned, that easily beats out any of these other names that we've talked about in the matches that they could do. For me.
Well,
like the matches I would tune in to see.
I just don't think she would be as big a star in the WWE environment.
No, probably not. That's fair, for sure. But, I mean, yeah, it's tough to go that direction. WWE, the other direction's pretty easy. I mean, there's a lot
like everybody.
Names.
Yeah, it's the exact opposite. There's like about 27 people that I'd like to see go over there.
Yeah.
Okay, give me your guys' 2. If you could pick any 2 to flip to AEW, who would it be?
You see Greg's comment?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what we were laughing about.
Yeah.
That's great. He said, Mom, Dad, don't fight. For those who listen to the pod.
That's easy. That's easy. Triple H.
Well, I really want to see Kevin Owens. I think it's going to happen. Kevin Owens is pretty high on my list. I assume you're probably going to say Cesaro, Justin.
Yeah, Cesaro would be on mine.
Big E.
I like Big E's there. Obviously, I love Kyle Rouse's Triple H Chaos pick there. Shane McMahon would actually be even better.
The name did read McMahon. Yeah.
I think I mean, really, I'd probably want to go like a Charlotte or a Becky or a Sasha, like to really help pad out.
You want to see them work division. Britt Baker. Here we go.
Yes,
yep.
yes, right. You're right, but we want to see them do it in the AEW environment. That's the you're right. You've got to answer to do the question, whatever. But I would much rather, instead of Britt jumping to WWE, I would much rather any of those women jump to AEW.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Put Sami Zayn's name on the list too.
Oh yeah, yes.
Really, everyone in WWE except Dominic Mysterio and Austin Theory is an acceptable answer to this question. A fucking selfie?
All right, and I guess we got one more question we can get to.
Hold on, and no fucking dewdrop either.
No dewdrop.
Did you hear her defending that nickname, by the way? Oh, she's grown to like it.
Come on. Come on, Dewdrop. You don't really believe that. All right.
Grown to love coughing all day. No, I don't want Dolph Ziggler to AEW either.
Adam,
whoever's in the chat.
Yeah, no, we don't want Dolph Ziggler. All right. Last one. It's our good buddy Brian, our official cameraman from our live show in Chicago. Brian did a great job in the hotel there in Hoffman Estates. Brian's question. So he says, does AEW have the ability to be a more successful version of WCW? If so, what would AEW need to do differently than WCW to be a promotion that will be around for many years? An obvious one that comes to mind so far is the programming schedule to avoid a Nitro versus Raw's War situation. Can two powerhouse professional wrestling promotions coexist long term, and how? What do we think?
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there.
So can they be a more, I guess to condense it, can it be a more successful version of WCW? Can we have two powerhouse pro wrestling promotions? And I guess, what do they need to do to make that happen?
I think if you want to compare it to WCW, you got the Punk and Danielson jumps. I think you'd almost need one more big one in a couple years to really establish themselves on TV. Because I don't understand anybody who loves wrestling and would rather watch Raw or SmackDown and how they're getting more people watching it than AEW, which I think is a far superior product. And that's because, they've been around longer. They're ingrained in people's lives. And if you give it a couple years for maybe people to start switching to AEW, you would need like a Roman Reigns, or I don't know if Randy Orton really has the juice to move names, but you'd be looking at like who would be the Hogan or Nash and Hall, a big established WWE name that would jump to AEW to really ignite this quote unquote war.
Well, I think that's short term, and that would be good, and that's one way they could do it. I think getting a homegrown star that people haven't, and this is harder to catch on, is another way to do it. In terms of becoming a more successful WCW, that's such a tricky question because remember, WCW and wrestling on TBS had been around in some incarnation for 40 years. So, I've heard this Eric Bischoff. Okay, let me tell you something. His podcast ratings are down, and this guy's getting desperate, okay? He'll absolutely say anything to try to get his name. All right, he was falling out of the loop, and he's trying to attack AEW. This guy is as sad as it gets, Eric Bischoff, okay? More like jerk off, okay? But it was a Brian Pillman reference. But So I mean, his comments just I don't put any stock in him. I think he does. Even Cornette like acknowledged the inherent advantage WCW had. I think what AEW needs to do to be viable long term and sustainable is avoid the mistakes WCW made. Yes, there's always the pie in the sky thing, big stars competing with Vince. But I think they need to be more careful not to make those mistakes. And to be quite frank with you, Tony Khan strikes me as a much smarter individual than Eric Bischoff.
Mm-hmm.
He is not someone, Bischoff was so blinded by his love of Hulk Hogan that he just lost the plot. And he allowed himself to be worked and the inmates to run the asylum. So Khan can't let the inmates run the asylum. He can't overspend. TV rights fees are huge, so that's going to be sustainable. And, he does need, as Justin was saying, to hit that big angle or get that big star. But I think for a 2-year run, they've done quite well.
I mean,
so far.
From a live event perspective, they're getting close to WCW, like in its heyday. I wouldn't say they're quite there because I remember like Nitros. Selling out instantly, and they're doing great crowds, and we know like the pay-per-views are hot tickets and stuff, and they probably could fill up a stadium in some areas of the country. They're not quite where WCW was in its heyday, though. I mean, those tickets moved really, really fast, but on a consistent basis. But yeah, I think they just need to continue what they're doing, build the long-term stories. I think that the big stars, the homegrown stars like Kyle was talking, I think they'll break through. They've only been around 2 years. I think it would help to get an established star to jump. Now and I'm talking like a next tier level star. So like to look at the NWO comparison, I think, with Punk and Bryan coming over, that exceeds Hall and Nash because those two were way more people were watching when they are on top versus Hall and Nash and WWF, but they're not Hulk Hogan. I think like about the only names on par with a Hulk Hogan they could get would be like a Brock or to get an appearance out of The Rock, to be honest with you. I don't see it happening, but then again, Dwayne Johnson's Teflon. Stone Cold, of course. But like Dwayne Johnson's Teflon, man. Like if he did some appearances for AEW, and he's talked about AEW before on like Instagram Live and stuff, and I think he said he wishes them well. If he made some appearances for AEW, it's not like Vince McMahon would like cut him off forever. Vince would, love to have Rock come back whenever, no matter what he does. So he is a guy that has so much power in entertainment that like he could do that and go back and it wouldn't matter. But like it would be huge for AEW, obviously. So like to have him come over and do some stuff for him, obviously Brock, something to that level, John Cena. I don't know. Stone Cold, yeah, of course. Outside of that, there's really not anything that would rival Hogan, though. That would be tough.
I mean, keep doing what you're doing, I think, is a good lesson for now because situations like the NWO just don't fall into your lap necessarily. That was a unique set of circumstances. WWE, you look at the horizon, I don't see how it gets better moving forward. And, AEW has hit their goal. It's not as big as WCW was at its peak. It's not as big as WWE is right now. But to me, like that they're getting in some of these, newspapers and people are acknowledging their existence. Hey, there's a new game in town. This is I've had buddies say, oh, this is like the biggest challenger WWE's had since WCW, right? And I'm like, yes, it is for sure. And I think just getting that, the Variety article clearly got to WWE and upset them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's the strategy. Just keep doing what you're doing. Build your brand.
Yeah.
Don't worry about WWE because WWE is so stuck in its ways. It's not going to get better.
Yeah. Adam had a great point here in the chat I wanted to hit on. So he said, do you think expanding the audience would help? California used to be a big deal for wrestling. Selfishly, I wish AEW would come to California for a show. So Adam's in the San Diego area. I do think, we know the Young Bucks, they're from California. They're going to hit the market. I think they had plans for that before the pandemic. That set them back in their touring. I would not be surprised at all if they ran, we know they're doing Double or Nothing in Vegas. I guess that's the western part of the country. It's not on the coast. I wouldn't be that shocked, if they ran Revolution in California, to be honest with you, or somewhere in the south maybe.
Well,
but I think they're going to try to spread it out a little bit.
Yeah, and speaking of expansion, weren't they on the cusp of heading to Europe right before the pandemic
I believe
came in?
so. And what about Canada?
Yeah,
especially if you get a Kevin Steen.
This is one of the things about AEW that's a good thing is they don't run too many events. But it also makes it harder to see them live. We've been super fortunate here in the Midwest. They've ran a ton of shows in the Midwest, big shows. Justin and I were going to Full Gear in a week and a half, and we were just at All Out with Kyle. So we've been very, very fortunate. I'm sure it's not always going to be the case, but they're gonna get into all these markets. They're definitely going to do Canada. They're going to do stuff on the West Coast. You can't not run California. It's like 1 in 10 Americans live in California or something. Yeah. Massive market. They got to develop a presence out there, and it would be huge for them. And I think it's going to happen. Just give it some time. But yeah, that would help them for sure to increase their reach in that fashion as well. So it's exciting. I mean, they're moving in the right direction. I would say, don't make any drastic moves. Just slow build. Just keep doing what you're doing, and the success will keep coming.
And the first big test, I think, will come in several years from now. We always harp on how stale that WWE roster is. Tony cannot let his roster get stale. Like 6 years from now, we just don't want to, there's going to have to be some decisions made. Who's still got more left in the tank? Who doesn't? You're going to have to bring new people in. And you don't want to see retread feuds, matchups you've seen 1,000 times before. I think that'll be a challenge, but it's only a 2-year-old company. We're not there yet. So,
yeah,
that's what's so great about having Tony Khan at the helm of this is that, he's kind of, a student of wrestling history with the financial backing of a Vince McMahon.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, it's one of the things I love about it is because how much he loves the business. He's a super smart fan. He's well schooled on the history of the business. You listen to any podcast interview he's ever given, like he gets it.
I'm sure the second that the fans start getting bored is he will be getting bored at the exact same time.
And I know WCW had more people watching, even its demise. Did they have more people caring though? Or was it just a lot of old people drooling on themselves, waiting for Andy Griffith to come on? Because
routine viewership, they've been around for so long, as you said, on TBS for so many decades.
People are really invested in the AEW product right now, the people that do watch it. And I just think keep letting people slowly matriculate their way on. There's the bad faith people on Twitter. I was very, personally, this is Kyle speaking, I was very proud to see the absolutely hideous WWE_junkie account suspended on Twitter. That guy's an absolute tool. Okay, I think a piece of crap, a loser.
Kyle.
That made me very happy. I don't speak for anyone else, but just a complete tool shed. Did not contribute anything positive to the wrestling discourse. And really, if he never speaks again on pro wrestling, that would be fine with me.
This was a perfect moment for me to put the banner on the screen. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. You see on the video stream right now.
There were some other accounts I came across yesterday too. Who else could I just bury? Like Jobber Nation TV or something like that? Holy Lord have mercy.
Guys, if you want to hear us talk more AEW, by the way, what you need to do, I'm mentioned many times, we're going to be recording Top Rope Nation Extra tomorrow night probably, and we'll get to talk about it off air, but almost every week we do Top Rope Nation Extra after Dynamite or Rampage. So we are talking and really analyzing the AEW product on a weekly basis, but those are bonus shows we do on Patreon. So if you're a weekly listener of this show, you want to hear from us twice a week, click that link in the podcast description, check out the Patreon page. Best way to support the show, there's almost 60 bonus podcasts and growing each and every week there. Lots of AEW talk. You can only get that on Top Rope Nation Extra, the bonus podcast on Patreon. But yeah, hey, follow us on Twitter. The show's at Top Rope Nation. I'm at Ryan Droste, Droste. And by the way, you got about a week to enter the show. We are giving away to one lucky person AEW Full Gear on pay-per-view. You can enter the contest by going to my personal Twitter page, or you can find it on the show's feed as well. I've retweeted it. All you got to do is follow myself and the show's Twitter page. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Top Rope Nation, and retweet the tweet that I sent out, and you'll be entered in the contest to win. Very easy. I think there's only like 30 some people that have entered right now, so you have a decent chance of winning. This is a $50 pay-per-view. Get entered. It's very, very easy. You can watch Full Gear for free. And of course, we're on Facebook. We mentioned the Facebook Pro Wrestling Discussion Group. Just search it. I think it's linked here in the podcast description as well. And we're on Instagram as well. It's a lot of fun, Justin and Kyle. Thank you guys for doing this on a Tuesday night. Thank you again for sacrificing your NXT 2.0 viewership to do Top Rope Nation.
I have a few things I have left to say, though, believe it or not.
Okay, have at it. The floor is yours, sir.
One, the Atlanta Braves are about ready to win the World Series, it seems. If they don't, oh boy, are people from Atlanta going to kill me. Number two, the next time we see Justin Joint, he may be podcasting with Dustin Rhodes and the Blacktop Bully, a la the King of the Road match as he moves. Three, Brad Shepard stinks too, while we're talking about people that are no good on Twitter.
How'd you forget that one?
He's no damn good either. I think there was something else, but fuck it, I can't remember. That's enough.
This is a fun one. Thanks for all the great questions.
I remember.
Had some great topics.
Jim Cornette, not Vince Russo, Greg, to answer a question that we didn't have time to get to. I would clearly pick
Greg
Cornette.
had another question.
Yeah, I would clearly pick Cornette over. Cornette makes regrettable remarks. His comments on Hikaru Shida recently were absolutely heinous and out of bounds, but at least he knows wrestling, unlike Vince Russo, who is absolutely atrocious. And I would actually rather watch Hogan Warrior 2 than Brothers of Destruction versus DX, believe it or not. His other question he had.
Wow. Greg has a lot of good questions. The Cornette Russo was if AEW had to hire one of the two, who would you pick? And yeah, for me, it was Cornette too, just because he's got more of a knowledge of the industry for sure. So, all right, Justin, best wishes on your move. Hope to see the new studio here on the video stream very soon. Kyle, hope you're feeling better. Everybody else, hope you have a great week. Thanks for tuning in. I think it was episode 228 of Top Rope Nation. We'll see everyone again very soon. Take care.
But not you, WWE junkie.